Hello friends, welcome to Programming Concepts. My name is Amit and this is part 66 of the ASP.NET Core MVC tutorial. In this video, we will learn about the launchSettings.json file. This is a continuation of part 65, HTTP.sys web server implementation in ASP.NET Core. So please watch it before proceeding to this one. I shared the link in the description. So what is the launchSettings.json file? This file is a combination of two words, launch and settings. So what do we launch in programming world? Any idea? Rocket? No. As a programmer, we launch our software application, right? And when we launch our software application, we required some configurations or settings like when we host our application in IIS, we specify its application pool, we specify its binding like ports for HTTP and HTTP.sys. We also use environment variables, etc. And here we are talking about ASP.NET Core. So if we have to define the launchSettings.json file, we can say that a launchSettings.json file in an ASP.NET Core project contains configuration settings that are used when the application is launched, such as the URL of the web server, environment variables, and application settings. Alright. Next, a very important thing to keep in mind, this file launchSettings.json is meant for the development environment only. So when you publish your code, you will see this file will not get copied. So if you want settings specific to production environment, you can specify them in the appsettings.json file, or you can create your own JSON file. Alright. This file is there to help developers to configure settings easily. So when you run your code via Visual Studio, then configuration present under this file will be used. Simple, extremely simple. Another very important thing to keep in mind is that the settings in the file can be overridden by environment variables or command line arguments. So if you specify the same setting in environment variable and specify parameters while running your code via .NET CLI, preferences can be given to them and not to the launchSettings.json file. Alright, enough theory. Let's see that in action. Let's go to the Visual Studio, and this is the project which we are working with. Let's first delete the code where we used HTTP.sys in our last video from the program.cs file. Also remove unused references of ASP.NET Also update our project file and change the target framework from .NET 6.0 Windows to .NET 6.0 and ASP.NET Core hosting model to in process. This in process is not mandatory, you can use any, because we will check the responses server via the browser in this video. I am changing it to in process. Otherwise, the response server will be displayed as Kestrel. Alright. So the first question, where can we find our launchSettings.json file? Let's go to Solution Explorer, and within the properties folder, we have the launchSettings.json file. Let's open it. And you can see it has some default JSON properties. Let's delete all of them. We will create this file from scratch. Alright. First, a very important property of this file is profiles. Profiles here means you can create different combinations of setting for your development purposes. Let's say you want to set different environment variables, different URLs, etc. So let's create the first property, profiles, within curly braces. Now within profiles, we can have multiple profiles, right? So another curly brace. I am assuming you know what JSON format is and how to define classes and variables in JSON format. So let's create a new profile, and we will use this profile for development purposes. You can give it any name. With MVC default template, name given is IIS Express. Let me name it Pro Express for now, just to make you understand that IIS Express name is not mandatory here. As soon as you define profile, IntelliSense start giving you lots of options. The first and very important property is command name. So type the command name and you can see IntelliSense start giving you different options. The one which we are interested in is IIS Express. So let's type IIS Express. As the name suggests, this command is used when we would like to run our application via IIS Express. The name of this profile could be anything. As we specified Pro Express, by default with MVC template, name is given by Microsoft as IIS Express. Alright, so let's save and select this profile from the top and try to run. So we get the error. The IIS Express settings are missing the app URL property. This is required to configure IIS Express to run the site. So the message is quite meaningful and self-explanatory. If we have to run a site, we need to specify its URL, correct? If you read carefully, it says IIS Express settings are missing the app URL property. So we need to create another property with the name IIS Express settings. So let's create another property at the top with the name IIS settings. You can see IntelliSense is also giving you that option. Because we are creating these settings for IIS Express and not for the IIS, so let's type IIS Express. And these IIS Express settings have two options. You can specify their application URL and their SSL port. SSL port means the port you want to use for HTTPS. So let's say the application URL is http://localhost:53425. I'm using the same port which was given by default. You can provide any available port in your system. Alright. For SSL, let's set it to 44308. Make sure you clean and rebuild your solution. Sometimes when you change SSL port, it gives you the error IIS Express not available. So in case you came across such an error, rebuild your project. Because we select the command name as IIS Express, our compiler automatically associate this setting with IIS Express. And that's it. We are ready to launch our newly created profile. Let's save and select our newly created profile from the top and run our application. The application is started, but it doesn't open the browser the way in which we are used to it, right? We'll fix it in just a bit. For now, let's go to the browser manually and browse to 53425 port. And in a separate tab, open the 44308 port with HTTPS protocol. See, working as expected. Press F12. Within the Network tab, press F5. Select any request from the left. And within the response header, you can see the server is IIS. Now, we want when we run our application via Visual Studio, it automatically launches the browser. Let's implement that as well. So we only need to specify one property called launch browser. So set the launch browser property to true and run our application. See, the browser is launched. Next, within IIS settings, we can use a few more properties around authentication. Stop the application. Let's use Windows authentication and set it to false. Because this will be common to both IIS and IIS Express, we put it outside the IIS Express setting. Next, let's use anonymous authentication and set it to true. If you don't know what these authentications are, please Google it or ignore it for now. As we set anonymous authentication to true, it will act as a public website and allow everyone to access the site. If you set it to false, you will not able to browse this application. All right. The next very important thing is the environment variables. In the real-time project, our code has to go through multiple environments, and these settings are present under environment variable sections of your system. Now, if we have to replicate behavior against these environment variables, we can set it within the launch settings files itself. We don't have to manually go to the environment variable section of your laptop or server and set them manually. Alright, so the key used to set environment variables is environment variables. So type environment and variables with V in caps. As we have multiple environment variables, let's use curly braces. And let's use the most common environment variable, ASP NET Core underscore environment. So let's type ASP NET Core underscore environment and set its value to development. There are many other settings available, but for now, this is good enough. So we successfully implemented launch settings if we have to launch our application via IIS Express. But what if we want to use Kestrel? We have seen in part 60 of this video series that we can run our application via CLI. And in that case, Kestrel will be used. Now, what if I want to use Kestrel from my Visual Studio itself? For that, we can create a new profile. We don't have to open the command prompt and run the .NET command to execute the application via Kestrel. So let's create another profile. You can give it any name. As by default, project name is given. Let me also name it Pro Concepts, which is my project name. Again, you can give it any name. Then command name, and command name is project, which is to use Kestrel as a web server. Previously we used IIS Express, and now we are using project as a command. This will tell the compiler to use Kestrel. Simple, extremely simple. Then set the launch browser to true. Application URL to, let's say, http://localhost:5000. And then environment variables, just copy and paste from IIS profile. So our next profile is also ready. Let's save and select this profile from the top and run our application. See, listening to port 5000. And if you press F12, within the network tab, press F5, select any request from the left, and within the response header, you can see the server is Kestrel. So we successfully created a launch profile if we want to use Kestrel as a web server. Next, we can create profiles for IIS as well. Let's quickly implement that as well. Stop the application, copy and paste Pro Express profile, change profile name to IIS, and within IIS settings, copy and paste IIS Express setting, change the key name to IIS, change URL port to 99, and SSL to 0. We don't want to use SSL for now. Another important thing to keep in mind is that if we are using IIS profile, IIS should be installed in your development machine, and the port you are planning to use, we have an associated website created in IIS. Let's open IIS. Create a new website. Let's name it IIS Profile Testing. Give it any location. We will change it from the Visual Studio itself. Let's say d:///pro concepts. Specify the port to 99 and click OK. Go to Visual Studio. We require one more package to run IIS via Visual Studio. Let's add one more package. Let's open the NuGet package manager and search for system.security.cryptography.pkcs. I don't know why this package is required, but when I try to run without this package, it throws me an error. I saw some discussion on Microsoft forum where some developers get this exception when they upgrade from .NET 5 to .NET 6. And also a few reported this error when they are using IIS in debug mode. To get an error, just run this profile without this package. Try by yourself. Let me add that package. Save and select the profile from the top and try to run. And you will get an error. This task requires an application to have elevated permissions. Because we are using IIS here, please open this project as an admin. So we open a Visual Studio as an admin. Let's go to Visual Studio and run again. So we get a prompt stating it is pointing to some other location. Can we change this location? Select yes. And see, working as expected. Let's go to the launch setting file and change Pro Express to IIS Express. So we have a similar launchSettings.json file created, which is created when we create a new MVC ASP NET Core application. Plus, we also add a profile to launch IIS via Visual Studio. There are many other properties or settings available. We will use it as we will proceed along with this tutorial. So let's summarize. A launchSettings.json file in an ASP NET Core project contains configuration settings that are used when the application is launched, such as the URL of the web server, environment variables, and application settings. This file is typically located in the properties folder of the project and is used by Visual Studio and other development tools to configure the application's runtime environment. This file is ignored when we publish the app. So that's it from this video. Hope you like our content. If you have any queries related to the content of this video, do ask me in the comments. Till then, thanks for watching.